Japan is a great nation, but since the 1990s, Japan has been dealing with slow economic growth and periods of recession. In this graph, we have Japan's GDP, and as we can see, it stagnated for over 3 decades. So, what on earth happened? How did Japan's economy, which was so close to surpassing America as the top economic powerhouse, end up stuck in deflation and economic standstill? It's become so bad that the Bank of Japan had to make some pretty desperate moves, like buying up a whopping 50% of the government's debt and becoming the largest shareholder in Japanese companies. The big question is, what were the causes of Japan's lost decades? What are the long-term effects? Can Japan's economy recover?
These are the questions that we will discuss in this video. Before we start, don't forget to give a like and write in the comments what you think. Will Japan's economy be able to fully recover? What were the causes of Japan's lost decades?
So let's start with the beginning. Japan's lost decades refers to a period of economic stagnation that began in the early 1990s and lasted for nearly 2 decades. During this time, Japan struggled with deflation, slow economic growth, and an inability to regain its former strength as a global economic powerhouse. A multitude of factors contributed to this prolonged period of economic malaise. The root cause of Japan's lost decades can be traced back to the late 1980s when the country experienced rapid expansion in asset prices, fueled by cheap credit and speculative investments. As a result, real estate prices skyrocketed and stock values reached astronomical levels. The economic bubble eventually burst in 1990, leading asset prices to fall sharply and a collapse in demand for goods and services. This shock set the stage for Japan's prolonged period of stagnation. The burst of the asset bubble led to a banking crisis, as banks were left with massive non-performing loans due to unpaid debts from the collapsing assets. Many financial institutions faced insolvency and struggled to cope with their losses. The Japanese government bailed out some banks, but failed to address the underlying issues, such as weak regulations and poor risk management practices. This further aggravated the financial crisis. In response to the economic downturn, Japanese policymakers alternated between fiscal stimulus measures and austerity programs, proving inconsistent in their approach. At first, stimulus packages were unable to revive consumption or investment effectively as families and businesses were being careful due to ongoing uncertainty. On the other hand, when the government tried to save money by cutting spending, it made any small improvements in the economy disappear. Also, the necessary changes to improve the economy in the long run were either delayed or done slowly, making it even harder for Japan's economy to get better. As demand for goods and services declined, Japan entered a period of deflation, characterized by falling prices. The Bank of Japan attempted to combat deflation through a policy of low interest rates, eventually reaching a zero-interest rate policy. Theoretically, this should have stimulated borrowing and investment. However, businesses and households remained hesitant to spend due to income stagnation and uncertainty about future prospects. Deflation led to a vicious cycle of delayed consumption and investment, further contributing to economic stagnation. However, there is also a greatly underestimated reason: Japan's aging population. Japan has the highest life expectancy in the world, but the mandatory retirement age is still 65 years old. The number of elderly and retired people in Japan is rising, while the number of people in younger generations is getting smaller. This results in a decreasing working population. Since elderly people tend to consume less than younger people, this also shrinks the domestic consumer market, creating additional problems. Japan's birth rate has been declining for decades. In 2022, the fertility rate was 1.3 births per woman, well below the replacement rate of 2.1 births per woman. Also, in 2022, the elderly population accounted for 28.6% of the total population. This is the highest proportion of elderly people in any developed country. The aging population is putting a strain on the country's social security system, as there are fewer workers paying into the system and more retirees drawing benefits. The combination of a declining birth rate and an aging population is leading to a growing dependency ratio. The dependency ratio is the ratio of the number of people who are not working to the number of people who are working. In Japan, the dependency ratio is expected to reach 70% by 2060. This means that there will be 7 dependents for every 10 producers. What are the long-term effects? I think we can agree that such a long period of stagnation cannot be without consequences. This slow growth has had implications on the nation's employment rate, social welfare, and potential for future progress. One significant consequence is the increase in unemployment and underemployment rates. As businesses struggle to generate profits, they are often forced to cut jobs or reduce workers' salaries to stay afloat. This has led to a rise in temporary employment and an increase in the number of people holding multiple part-time jobs.
Also, the ongoing stagnation has impacted social welfare programs and public services. With less tax revenue being generated because of the slower economic growth, the government had to cut funding for essential programs such as healthcare and education. This has an impact on the quality of life for many Japanese citizens and made it difficult for public institutions to keep up with the demands of an increasingly aging population. As the country's economic standing has gone down, there's a general feeling of uncertainty and pessimism among the population. People have become increasingly worried about their job security and financial stability. This lack of confidence has led to decreased spending, which has further slowed down the economy. The decline in consumer confidence is a major problem for the Japanese economy. When people are less confident about the future, they are less likely to spend money, which can lead to a recession. The government has taken several steps to try to boost consumer confidence, such as cutting taxes and increasing government spending. However, these measures have had limited success so far. Finally, we arrive at another crucial point, which is the increase in the income gap inequality within Japanese society. To explain this further, when it becomes hard to find jobs because the economy is not doing well, people who are lucky enough to have steady jobs end up getting more money. This extra money lets them save, put it into things that grow in value, and think about what's coming next without too much trouble. On the other hand, people who already had money problems before now have an even tougher time. It is possible for Japan's economy to recover. So far, we have seen what were the causes and consequences, but the really big question is, can Japan recover from this cycle of stagnation? The short answer is yes, but it won't be easy and it will take time. And to do it, Japan has to manage to resolve a lot of issues. It's high time for authorities to double down on fiscal and structural policies, giving a much-needed boost to effective demand and overall growth in real disposable income. This will help in combating low inflation and deflationary trends that have been plaguing the economy. Take the planned consumption tax hike, for instance. Despite being less aggressive than its predecessor, it could still be a bummer for an economy on the path of moderate recovery. Perhaps hitting pause on this tax hike until inflation goes beyond its target for a considerable time would be a wiser move. Think about it. A thriving economy needs real wages and disposable income to consistently grow. Achieving a prosperous cycle of economic development relies on nominal wage growth outpacing labor productivity growth, ultimately pushing core inflation to sustainable heights. Japan needs to think outside the box by embracing innovative ideas, delving into policy experimentation, and critically evaluating evidence when charting its course of action. History shows that the Japanese people can unite under strong leadership to attain common goals. The challenge is to define those goals and execute actions that benefit both Japan and the rest of the world by fostering higher growth and reaching that ever-elusive inflation target. Thanks for watching so far. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe for more videos. Have a good day.